Good evening and welcome to the Coos County Citizen Council live stream. I'm Chris Castleman.
And I'm Brandi Martindale.
All right. So we've got a great little show for you tonight.
Yeah.
Did you want to do that part?
We're going to be talking about ways to better secure your home to prevent crime. Chris is going to give a recap of a recent tactical defense training he went to this weekend and show a few videos. I'll be sharing my thoughts on institutionalized covert abuse and how institutions, specifically nonprofits, have used tax dollars to push an unhealthy ideology. I'll also be discussing the strategic planning happening in our sister cities of Coos Bay and North Bend. We'll touch on some local and national headlines from the past week and give an update on our investigation into the sex offender teaching at our local community college.
All right, thanks, Brandi. First, I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about our country's future. Next week, President Trump is going to be sworn into office for his second term. Now, regardless of whether that excites you or upsets you, we should all be concerned for our country's future. Ask yourself, who will lead our nation into the next decade? And the one after that? Is there anyone out there who is truly focused on returning America to the foundations it was built upon? For example, is anyone out there concerned with the erosion of private property rights? Why is it illegal for me to build a home on my own land without paying the government for the permission to do so? And not only do they tell me whether or not I can build, they micromanage every step of the process and make it twice as long while doubling the cost. Who amongst us will stand up to this overreach and eliminate these overbearing government programs for good? Why is it illegal for me to drive a car without paying the government for permission to drive it via car registration? If it's such a necessary component of society, why don't we have cell phone registration, bicycle registration, or hell, even government registration fees for the shoes on your feet? Seriously, think about it. After all, you do use those shoes to travel on government-maintained property, don't you? Sidewalks don't just build themselves. It's all complete bullshit, and someone needs to bring it to an end. Who will that be? I don't see anyone on the national stage offering up a solution. Or a driver's license. When I moved to Oregon, I had to pay $60 for a new license. No test, no exam, nothing. Just $80 or $60 every 8 years for the privilege to drive under the threat of fines and imprisonment. But how can they do this, you might ask? It's simple, because we all comply and no one has stopped them. An even scarier thought is that almost no one wonders if it's even a problem. We all just go about our lives as nice little citizens and pay the fees when asked. Good comrades. And then you hear those on the left screaming, "My body, my choice." But they're silent when a discussion starts on vaccine mandates for school children, or nurses and teachers and soldiers who refuse a COVID vaccine and subsequently get fired. They're silent. Who will actually rise up and defend our rights to bodily autonomy from the government? And no, I'm not talking about abortion. For example, I don't consume hard drugs, nor do I encourage it, but shouldn't it be my choice what to put into my own body? Let's have that discussion. Why have we allowed the government to replace our parents or even our own conscience? That's not what our founding fathers designed this country to be. There was a news story a little while back about a guy in New York who had a pet squirrel. The government came in and killed it. He called it euthanasia to sound nice. There was no preceding event involving the squirrel, meaning it's not like it ran over to the neighbor's house and bit their children. Are we okay with that kind of government power? The power to barge in and kill your pets? And not to beat a dead horse, but most municipalities have a registration fee for pets. Your dog has puppies. Here, Mr. Government Worker, here's $800. I hope that covers the whole litter. If not, just take it out of my paycheck next week. This is real life, people. Who will stand up to this? Do we just allow it to continue on forever, to grow and evolve into a bigger monster? Or do we bring it to an end in our lifetime? It continues simply because we all comply and no one has stopped them. And yes, I get it. It's easier to just pay those fees and keep your mouth shut. But is the easy path always the right one? Most people have heard this story already, so I won't get into it too much, but I ran a restaurant during the 2020 government shutdown. The one, you know that one, under the guise of keeping us safe from the coronavirus. They said it was illegal to serve customers who didn't stand 6 feet apart, illegal to not wear a mask. And in California, where I was at the time, it was even illegal to drink in a bar after 6 p.m., and it was illegal to surf at the beach. Innocent citizens were actually arrested for simply going about their normal lives. I was one of them. Do not forget that these things happened. I organized a weekly protest during that time against those mandates, and some of the people with me were actually afraid to stand within 6 feet of one another outside. Not because they were concerned with catching the virus, but because they thought it would give the government a reason to arrest us and shut down the protest. The very thing that we were protesting. I could go on, but the point is that government is able to get away with this because we all comply and no one has stopped them. And even those of you who are inclined to believe that we need some level of government regulation to function, how much regulation is too much? I was listening to Elon on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he gives the analogy of a quarterback not being able to complete a pass during a game of football because there's too many referees in the way of that ball getting to the receiver. Now, you can argue that the game needs referees, but not to the point where you can't play the game anymore. That's where we're approaching in America. It's not fun to play this game anymore. If you're watching this show, I can only imagine that maybe it's because you feel it too. You feel that you're living inside a science fiction novel, one without a hero, and where all the villains are so pathetically dull that you're screaming at the pages, wondering how no one has been able to defeat the bad guys. Are the main characters so blind that they can't even see what's going on? The sad part is there are actual books written about times like these, and we were even forced to read them as school children. But almost everyone chooses compliance, ignorance, and obedience in adulthood. You remember 1984, Animal Farm, Brave New World, Atlas Shrugged, The Fountainhead. So where do we all go from here? We need voices to speak the truth about our future. We need leaders to show us a path forward. We need heroes. Will it be you? If not you, then please consider looking for and nurturing the kind of environment that will allow our heroes to rise up and win. If you're not ready to be one of them yet, then at least do your part to support folks who are standing up and speaking out. You never know the impact you might have on someone with as simple of a gesture as saying, "Hey, I believe in you." Thank you for listening, and I know I left out a million other ways the government is stepping out of bounds or failing to protect our rights. So if one is particularly important to you, please write it in the comments or message one of us privately. We'd love to hear what's on your mind. I know it in my heart that I'm not alone in feeling incredibly underwhelmed by our national and local prospects of true warriors for liberty. Well, tonight we're lucky to have one of those rising stars with us, Brandi. Let me bring her back on here. What do you think, Brandi? Are we headed down the right path as a country?
I am, hesitantly optimistic. It's been a really dark 4 years. I think we're coming to a place where we're starting to a lot of people are realizing how stifled we really have been, how draconian and authoritarian the regulations that we've lived under have been. I know for me, 2020 was I guess they call it a red pill. 2020 was, I deleted my Facebook.
I did too.
And I wanted nothing to do with any of it. I was disgusted by the way people behaved. I was horrified at the draconian measures that were taken. And of course, then the lies started being revealed. And it has just been a lot of that, a lot of controlling people's behavior without a justifiable reason to do it and without a net positive outcome.
I think there was an outcome, and like you said, it was people like you and I waking up. I think we were on parallel paths during that time in our lives, so it's cool that um, you know that actually had a positive impact on us in a weird way, and here we sit today. I want to move on to I went to a training over the weekend, and this is about like this is kind of more prepper style stuff. This is like what happens if a bunch of people come and kidnap my girlfriend and I have to go hunt through the woods and make sure I bring her back to safety. So let me throw up a bit. This video I don't think has any sound, but it was a nighttime.
Really cool
it was a nighttime tactical defense training. The scenario was like defending your home in the dark, pitch black in the woods, and trying not to. If people were out there looking to cause problem, you want to be as possible.
Chris, the video is making your
Okay.
audio go wonky.
Oh.
This is really cool. I own an AR with the light attachment and the red dot and the green dot, so I can use it with night vision and stuff like that. And I've wanted to do something exactly like this because you're right. It's so different when you're in the dark.
Yeah, it was crazy. And like my lens was, my optical was fogging up, and it was like, I've shot a gun before, but doing it at night in the cold and in the fog was pretty crazy. So it's not a very exciting video. It was very slow. It was like a 10-minute course and maybe 100 rounds of ammunition. But it was a pretty cool opportunity to kind of like learn how to be stealthy. You don't want people to be able to just follow the flashlight in the woods and destroy you, right? So, but anyway, that was definitely cool. And if anyone is interested in doing something like that, reach out to me, and I can make that happen. We're probably going to do another one of those trainings later on in the year. But yeah, the other thing I wanted to touch on is some home security. Let's see if I can get this video up.
This was so cool.
Do you know Base and Tackle Rob? Or he goes by Doug Washington now.
Oh, I know him. Facebook. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've known him for quite a while. I've probably known of him longer than he has known of me, just because of professional relationships. But I work in the back office where no one really ever like sees me unless I'm the person that is usually doing things like rate changes. More often than not, decreases. So that's good news. But yeah, I've dealt with Rob professionally. He's a great guy.
He's a pretty cool guy. He's kind of a comedian. He's a radio show host. Not kind of a comedian. He's a comedian. So he's online at Base and Tackle Rob, or BTR Doug Washington, and then Base and Tackle Online are his two accounts. I'm not sure if this audio is going to work, but
Sir Doug of Basin. Sir Doug of the Basin.
You can see this bottom video. This person is coming onto his property at like 2 a.m. trying to steal stuff, and he has these lights. I don't know if you heard it, but she goes, "What the heck? Oh shit!" And then just turns around and walks off. I mean, just watch that again. She gets blinded as soon as she walks onto his property, and then just turns around and leaves. I mean, talk about like defending your own property without having to do anything.
That's cool.
That's pretty cool. He has a video on there. Go ahead, Brandi.
I was going to ask Rob. I have seen some products on the market because I've looked for basically this exact same thing. And I was wondering why he didn't use, he set up lasers. So the laser disconnects and the lights come on and all the lights trigger together. So it literally floods his property with light. It's genius. I've looked for similar things that were like motion activated. And I'm wondering if he went for the lasers because it's easier to control what sets them off. Because you don't want these lights going off every time a car drives by or someone walks down the sidewalk or something like that. So that's really an ingenious idea.
Yeah, his property is totally fenced in except his driveway. So I think the beams are mostly just right across the threshold of his driveway. And I don't know if you can you hear this playing, or you just see it moving? I still don't have the audio working, but if you go onto his page, he shows him walking onto the property, and then boom, it just turns on. He goes, and it's daytime. It's pretty funny. So if you go to his page, he does tips like that all the time on ways to improve, defense on your property and make sure you're deterring these criminals. So
yeah, that video is
yeah.
cool. I would definitely recommend watching it if you're interested in home security. And he mentioned reach out to him if you'd like to know how to set it up, because it wasn't a product that he bought off the shelf. It was something that he put together. And so he knows how to do it. And he's really great about sharing information. He's really helpful like that. So he's a good dude to reach out to.
He does it with fishing too. I walked into his store once and he's like sitting there making fishing lures, and just hands me some and goes, use these. They'll catch fish. And they did. That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Did you want to take over from here for a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things I wanted to address, Chris, if you could pull up the post from the mayor from Mayor Engelke. And
right.
so this post is regarding her attendance at the State of the State in Salem yesterday, January 14th. She notes that this is a critical time to let legislators know how their actions impact our cities. Mayor Engelke goes on to describe the governor's speech that placed a strong emphasis on housing, mental health, and education, addressing both challenges and opportunities in these areas. I do applaud Mayor Engelke for her involvement in state politics. She has recently traveled to DC to lobby for resources for our county, and I believe Engelke to be a qualified leader who's brought positive development to North Bend. Don't get me wrong here, I am a fan, but let's address the elephant. Neither her nor our governor are addressing the issue that Oregonians are struggling with daily: crime. Nowhere in this post is our skyrocketing crime rate mentioned. No mention of crime reduction methods nor public safety. I ask Jessica, our governor, and other local leaders this question: how are we to correct this major quality of life issue if our leaders don't even speak its name? How are we to develop strategies and programs that deal with the nefarious, the ill-intended, and the malignant if our leaders seem oblivious to their existence, but maybe they are feverishly working behind the scenes, right? If they are, we don't see it because they don't talk about it. Refusing to acknowledge the exploded crime rate is a disservice. It's spit in the face to the thousands of victims affected by crime in our county every year. Local public relations communications rarely mention crime and public safety. For example, the City of Coos Bay's City Council webpage for goals and objectives lists their top #1 priority as working well together, promote diversity, equity, and inclusion for a safer, more inclusive community and municipal organization. Public safety is listed way down at #6 and addresses disaster preparedness and fire hazard mitigation. Hardly what we'd think of when we hear public safety. To my disappointment, safe public spaces and crime reduction goals are completely missing from Coos County's most crime-ridden cities' objectives. Let me ask you, as a person who has been robbed, burglarized, attacked, stalked, or harassed, does this number one goal resonate with you? Do you feel that inclusion is what's needed to keep you, your family, and your property safe? For me, this feels like a blatant disregard of the reality we're all living and lip service to a diversive and discriminatory ideology. I see a public that is growing increasingly dissatisfied with the priorities of our leadership. And here's my warning: listen to your people. Because if you don't, your people very well may elect someone else who does. To pivot, Chris, let's dig more into the issue with Coos Bay's number one goal. Let's unpack what it really looks like to prioritize diversity, equity, and inclusion. Let's talk about what these priorities have birthed. In theory, these goals sound admirable, but in practice, they require discrimination. The more I've investigated what it means to embrace DEI ideology, the more I have uncovered anything but a fair, healthy value system.
It's pretty crazy. Like, you can have all these goals here and not one of them is crime. And like, here, maybe I have it here. This is a graphic that shows the cities in Oregon with the highest and lowest crime. You look at Coos Bay, it's one of the top 3 cities in the state for crime per capita.
Yep.
It's insane.
And look at how small we are.
We've got oh, that didn't work. We've got a state that's infested with sex offenders, and they're not doing anything about it. They want to beautify the city through urban renewal grants and funds like that, and they want to focus on DEI. And you're right. You pointed out the public safety section. It's not public safety like you and I would think. It's like disaster preparedness, like for a tsunami.
Right. When we think of public safety, we think of safe public spaces. And when people are getting carjacked in the Walmart parking lot at knife point at 5:30 in the afternoon, we have a public safety issue. And it's not being addressed. And people are angry. I mean, I don't know. I don't understand how you are in a leadership role like this and you just don't talk about it. I get that housing is a problem. There are families who are, and I would call it under housing, because the majority of our homeless are not the feral, mentally ill drug addicts on the street that are terrorizing the community. Most of our homeless are actually people who are under, they have a roof over their head because they're staying with someone or they're being lodged, but they don't have a permanent residence of their own. And so I do understand the importance of housing, but they're not even talking about the crime. They're not even addressing it.
And the most effect it has on us are those ones that you said they're feral, they're the ones that are causing the problem. So it doesn't even really matter what percentage they are or how many they are. It's the fact that they're causing such a big problem.
Correct.
Wreaking so much havoc on us.
It's a little strange to me that a person who can be so aware of the problem with the top, 0.5% of billionaires hoarding so much income to themselves, they understand that that is a problem, even though those people are a very small percentage, but they don't understand the problem that homeless criminals are causing. Yes, they're a small percentage, but they're doing a lot of damage to social welfare, to our public spaces. Talk about it.
they're doing permanent damage inside. And
Oh,
like
yeah.
these leaders act like it's not causing permanent damage. Like I'm going to throw up a comment here from Melissa. She says, even with my home security, my husband suffers daily from a homeless man. This is a woman whose husband was assaulted by a homeless man. He was hit over the head with a skateboard, trying to get him and the homeless man and his girlfriend off the property. And it's crazy. He has permanent damage from this. The DA actually pled this down to attempted assault. Do you know how insane that is to tell somebody who was actually assaulted that it's been proven that I'm sorry, your abuser is going to just sit in jail for a couple years on attempted assault, even though you have permanent damages. It's crazy, and this is not, unfortunately, a unique story.
No,
It's
it's not.
happening often around here. It's crazy. And then when we bring these things to the leader's attention, to the city council, like, I'll put it back up on the screen here for a second. There's Brandi. I put this on the internet. Me and a couple other people, we shared this around that these are the goals for the year, and how disgusted we are that like goal number 1 is that and not crime, and crime's nowhere in this document. And the response back from these people was that that's not goal number 1. It's just a list of goals, and it happens to be first. They actually came after us for spreading misinformation that's not goal number 1. It's not a prioritized list. It's just simply a numbered list. Like, that's so tone deaf and insane. It's actually like, I don't have words to describe my frustration with that. And this happens all the time, anytime that we bring something up.
It's a disregard of, what we put at the front of our mind is what we think about the most. So whether or not they were trying to prioritize, they did. That might not have been the intention, but when you do order things in a 1 through 10 type fashion, that does lend a reasonable person would see that as their number. I mean, you guys, you put it at the front. And I would prefer not to be gaslit into thinking that that doesn't mean something, because it does. If we perceived it to mean something, others perceive it to mean something. And the very least they could do is acknowledge that, hey, you guys have a point. We could have done that differently. I am sick of the excuses. I'm sick of the, the kind of downplaying. I want accountability. And I don't think I'm alone in that. I want these people to take responsibility for the decisions that the effects that their decisions make. That does matter. And to kind of treat us like we're being hyperbolic. Well, we're the ones that are living with the consequences. So we get to be upset if we want to be upset about it. And Chris, I think
where are the leaders that are going to just go, damn, you're right. We didn't put crime in our strategic goals. You're right. And we should. I'm going to get on that. I'm going to get right on that for you, because crime actually is a problem. Like, why do I live in a world where that's a fringe response to the city's strategic goals?
Right.
And you mentioned covert abuse tactics, and you had sent me this website the other day, and it's about learning to recognize 26 covert abuse tactics. And that's like exactly what's happening. We're being like strategically abused by our own elected officials, and we keep doing it to ourselves by electing them, and not, supporting other people who might do a better job. So that's why I'm here. I think that's why you're here. It's why we're getting involved. So
we've got denying, minimizing, rationalizing. We have for sure seen, we've seen a little bit of shaming. We've seen a little bit of hidden blame shifting. We've seen a little bit of accusing the victim. We've seen a little bit of playing the victim. We've seen a little bit of, and it all has been we've seen a little bit of gaslighting. It has all been very subtle. And I don't think these people are intending to necessarily be abusive, but they need to recognize that when they're shirking accountability, they're gonna have to use tactics to get around it. And that's not the way to do it. The way to do it is to say, you know what? We missed this. We need to pay attention to this. I don't understand the deflection. I don't understand the unwillingness to just say, wow, you guys are right. We really do have a problem. We need to listen to people. People are suffering. I know of people who have left Coos County because they kept getting stolen from. They sold their house and they left. And that's multiple people. And we wonder why we can't keep talent, why we can't find, quality labor in the trades. It's because people don't want to live here because their quality of life is being seriously disrupted by crime. People don't want to work their butts off to have nice things, just to have those nice things destroyed and taken from them by a degenerate who has given nothing back, continues to take, and there's no repercussions. It's frustrating. And for people who weren't born and raised here and don't have roots here and don't have a reason to stay here, they're packing up and leaving for greener pastures. And mind you, the pastures are greener. I have a friend who moved to Utah, and one of the things that I would like to do in the future is dig into exactly why, because their bills are lower, their mortgage is lower, their mortgage insurance is lower, their utilities are lower, their property taxes are lower. However, their quality of life is way better. The streets are cleaner. There's way lower crime. So what are they doing right that we're not doing? Because we can do the same things that get better results. And so you got to compare apples to apples and get in there. And it's obviously a big task, but we're paying people to do this stuff for us. So when we're paying these leaders to be in these roles, like our commissioners, they're supposed to be advocates for us. They should be going to bat for us. They should be doing all the due diligence they possibly can to make sure that we have the best policies in place to get the best results. And we're not seeing that. And that's why people are angry.
Well, I can tell you what Montana and Texas and Florida don't have. They don't have that lady right there in the middle. They don't have governors like Kate Brown and Tina Kotek and the legislature that they walk with. And we're in a super minority if you're a Republican here in Oregon, and I'm really concerned about the next 2 years. So we got to get somebody who can lead this state in a better direction. So I don't know if that's going to happen in the next 2 years, but we got to start working on getting there. And I think we need to start local.
Absolutely. I mean, we do have power to start at the grassroots and demand change. I think just getting the message out there that we don't have to do things the way we're doing them, and getting people to speak up, tell the truth, say the thing, stop being scared. I think people are really intimidated by things like ostracization. We live in a really small community, and people are afraid to upset people in this community who have power. That's a little abusive. And I'm not just kind of pulling that out of thin air from vibes. I'm going off of things that people have told me out of their own mouths to my face, that people don't want to make waves because it can jeopardize their position in the community, whether it be losing clients. Typically, it's losing clients, losing favor with government leaders, or losing potential job opportunities because they express their views. That's intimidation. I mean, that's, whether it's intended or not, the result is covert abuse. That's abusive. And so when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, are we including diversity of thought? Are we including diversity in perspective?
Not that I see. No.
I mean, and to get, I don't know if you want to kind of like segue into this DEI stuff and why it's not a great thing to bring in. I think this might be a good spot to turn into that.
I mean, yeah, the D go. You weren't done. Sorry. Go ahead.
I did want to use sources that anybody could easily look up. So I could pull my own academic stuff, but that's not going to do people a lot of good who don't have access to those types of resources or don't know how to dig through them. And so I thought, you know what? Let's see what's on Google. And what do you know? There is some stuff on there. So if you just look up how DEI is abusive, there's going to be a lot of stuff come up. And one of the things they emphasize is that these programs have to be implemented with some sort of consideration for fairness. For it can't be done with a dull sword. It needs to be done with a scalpel. Well, do we really trust the people who are implementing these programs to do it correctly? Because I will tell you, I personally do not. The problems that you can run into, we have forced conformity. Are we seeing that here in Coos County?
Just a little.
I really think a lot of these anonymous accounts on Facebook that are commenting are some of our public leaders. And so I think some of the people who are being coerced into conformity are some of our leaders who are afraid to speak up because they're going to step on toes. Reverse discrimination, which there is no such thing as reverse discrimination. It's just discrimination. This is inherent. You cannot privilege one race without taking away opportunity from another. It's a pie. There's only one pie. Whoever gets part of it, there's another part of it. That's it. That's all you get. So if you allot preference to someone based on race, you are inherently discriminating against someone else because of their race. The Supreme Court already ruled last year that doing this in college admissions is discriminatory. The practice has been found unconstitutional. That's like a really basic, like low level understanding, like it's a finite resource. So
there's even big corporate businesses like Facebook and Amazon that have recently, like, this is all over the news. Sorry, this is CNN people, but if CNN has it, it must be true, right? And I don't think that's Joe Rogan. I think that's like Brian Seltzer or something. But you have big companies that pushed this stuff. Facebook, I guess it's called Meta now. Google, Amazon, Walmart, these massive organizations that really push for this DEI stuff, and it's all coming to a thunderous close. And then you still have little cities in southwestern Oregon called Coos County North End. Yeah, that is like just getting to it. They're just getting going.
Focus on identity over merit, right? Can you find the clip of that female fire chief out of LA claiming that if she has to carry your husband out of a fire, he got himself in the wrong situation? This is victim blaming.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but this is
I don't think it'll.
It's pure abuse, and it was absolutely stunning. My flabbers were gasted. Under
Your flabbers were gasted.
I mean, I couldn't, she said the quiet part out loud, and I was just like, oh my God, like, what has to happen for a person to say that and not realize what they said? I mean, it's literally this. Okay, yeah, play it.
It's not going to have sound, but I think it's captioned so you can read it. I got to get a new computer. The sound thing isn't working, but let's see.
Yeah, whether it's a medical call that looks like you. I've never been interested in being like, boy, I hope the person. You couldn't carry my husband out of a fire. He got himself in the. Oh my God, can you replay that really quick? Can you just back it up and like, it's so quick. You couldn't carry my husband out of a fire. He got himself in the wrong position if I have to carry him out of a fire. That is basically the same as saying, maybe if she didn't wear that mini skirt, she wouldn't have gotten raped. Okay, that's victim blaming, and we don't do that here. What made this woman think that that was appropriate to say? Because we have to look at the overarching context that enabled a person to go that far down an ideological rabbit hole where they're literally openly victim blaming.
But it's not even just her. It's like the people who filmed it and then put it out online, and like they spent money on that. They spent tax dollars on it. Like, it's insane. Like, fire doesn't care what skin color you have. It'll kill you no matter what. And if you're an emergency, why would you care the skin color or the sexuality or anything of someone? You just care about their capabilities.
And, I can guarantee you.
I actually have this shirt on today. I don't know if you can read it. It's a shark and it says "No lives matter."
Oh my God.
Because sharks don't care. And that's the world we live in. We live in a natural world where we should only care about ability. And if I can't swim fast enough, that shark's going to eat me. They don't care what skin color I am. It's crazy. This DEI stuff. I've gone all over the county recently in the past couple months talking about this at library board meetings and city council meetings to try and combat it, and just to try and get the other side out there so they're not just having these conversations in silos in little echo chambers. And it's insane. I'm just met with silence. Like, I'm in a room with 8 people on the library board, and I tell them about how inappropriate it is that there are all these displays at eye level for a 5-year-old, showing them, all these different books about being queer and how skin color matters, and if you're Black, you should be really proud. But if you're white, you can't be proud. It's crazy, and they just sit there. Yep, go ahead.
Labeling and othering. That's exactly what you were just getting into, is labeling. I cannot tell you the number of times that when I tend to try to disagree in a very respectful, logical, fact-based way. The number of times that I have been told to basically shut up because I am a white woman. I've even been called a blonde white woman. Maybe she didn't realize how bleach works, but whatever.
Do I get special privileges for my gray beard? I mean, like, should that be, could I promote that? Could I institutionalize people and make that like a cool new thing going into 2025? Like,
you might be able to
the gray beards get preferred preference for grants and all sorts of government programs,
Yeah.
It's crazy.
The other criticism is a lack of nuance, which you can see that someone, and Kamala Harris is a wonderful example, a person of color who grew up exceptionally privileged. She has had a very privileged life, but because of her skin color, she is at a disadvantage. I have met very few people, we just don't see that. We don't see discrimination based on skin color. First of all, it's illegal. So if you do it, you're going to get in trouble. And if you want to discriminate on someone based on their skin color, you're probably not a very smart person. But the lack of nuance, because if you look at demographics in America, the white poor are being largely ignored. Did you know that 80% of the people taking advantage of assisted suicide, that's choosing to kill themselves, are white? 80%.
We got to fix that. We got to convince more non-white to kill themselves, because that's not fair. That's not very diverse, Brandi.
Maybe create a society where people don't want to kill themselves.
But I'm going to get on this.
80% of them are white, and no one is talking about that. These initiatives lack the nuance of considering generational poverty, generational trauma, the things that affect people regardless of what color you are. And to think that someone needs extra help simply because of the color of their skin is pretty, I mean, it's pretty low level thinking. It's really not, it does lack like the nuance and the context and the understanding of like what really disenfranchises a person.
Well, and somebody in the comments just reminded me the importance of having these conversations, because while we might sound like we're just complaining or it's not going to go anywhere, it actually does. So I got a call the other day from somebody who watched our last show. If you go on our page, you can see our last show. And I discussed a book that was pornographic, and it was found at the library, and I'm not going to show it again. If you want to see it, go back to my last show. And but she called me because she had an idea. Well, actually her daughter had an idea. And of having like covers over these books. Like, I mean, I would encourage the library to just get rid of these books. I don't understand why they have an argument that there's educational value in like fetish porn. It's crazy. But her daughter came up with this cool idea where you would have like a fake book, like a printout of the cover, and it would be sitting there on the shelf. And they'd have to take that slip and go up to the counter and say, hey, I'd like to get this book. Like, you know, at Blockbuster Video, you would take the empty case and get the actual video.
Yeah.
That way you don't have, because it actually was disguised as like a cool comic book. It was right next to like.
Didn't the guy say that they basically made him feel like it was his fault for not like looking close enough? His kid
100%.
Could have gone in and got it on his own.
Yep. Yep. No, and then when I talked to the librarian, she wanted to tell me that there was, you know, educational value in it. And, you know, it's fine that we disagree, but like everybody has to recognize that if it's something that's that disagreeable, maybe you shouldn't be spending public funds on it, right? Like, you know, the majority shouldn't always win.
Listen,
and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I'm going to take a hard no on that one and say we need to be safeguarding children's boundaries around adult sexuality. Full stop. Children should not have access to adult sexuality. It is so, and this is because it is grooming. And that is another covert abuse tactic. And I encourage everyone to go on this website. If you go
I
into
put the
Google,
link in the comments.
Type in, okay, it's recognized 27 or 26 covert abuse tactics. This is how grooming happens. We've heard that word a lot. And so what it means is you slowly break down a person's boundaries around something, right? So when an adult talks to a child about adult sexuality, that child is slowly going to become comfortable with an adult talking to them about sexuality. So what ends up happening is that child becomes accustomed to sexual adults talking about sexual things. When an adult starts to behave sexually around a child, that child is going to be less likely to perceive that as a wrong. It is grooming. It is priming children for dropping their boundaries. Children should be prickly around adult sexuality. It should give them, and if you've ever like seen when a kid, like you've seen, you don't have kids. I've spent a lot of time around kids. If you're watching a movie and like, you know, a kissing scene comes, kids will go, ew, gross, and they'll cover their eyes.
I was a kid once, Brandi.
Yeah,
and I had parents and I had adults around. Yeah.
But
you should be super weirded out. You should be like, why are we talking about this? Or why is this being brought up?
No safe person wants to talk to children about adult sexuality, period. If you're doing it, stop. You're breaking their boundaries down and you're priming them for sex abuse, period.
It's
and
crazy.
Yes, that's exactly what they want. Prove to me it's not. They're trying to let men into women's locker rooms where little girls are changing to get in the pool.
That's transphobic. You're crazy. You're a crazy person.
I guess so. I guess I just have to wear that label with pride because
I'm
never going to advocate for. What's that?
Like what kind of world do we live, right? Like, could you have imagined 20 years ago if I met you and we just started having lunch, go out for coffee, and I'm like, hey, by the way, in 20 years they're gonna allow men to just walk in to the women's room or the women's changing room at like a YMCA and just watch little girls change out of their swimsuits? I mean, like, take showers with them. I mean, and you won't be able to do anything. You'd be like, no, I would mess them up. And it's like, nope. In this day and age, they'd find room for you at the jail for touching that that man and trying to kick him out of there. It's insane.
So I wanted to kind of like expand on what you said. That makes you a transphobe. Like, no, I'm sorry, but if you have a penis, you do not belong in a nude space with women and girls.
Nope.
Full
Hard stop. Yep.
So to call someone who objects to men in, observing against their will women and children's nudity and exposing themselves to women and children, calling them a transphobe, let's be very clear, hidden blame shifting, guilt tripping. Okay, this is covert abuse. So when we talk about this whole inclusion, who are we including? Like, first of all, let me ask you, who said that people can't be included? Who is saying that, like, you can't participate in these activities because you're a certain color or you're a certain gender? I don't, people aren't really saying like, well, the outdoors are for white people only. No, Black people hike. Like, people do whatever they want to do. Like, no one is telling you can't. There's no reason to have an inclusion initiative when no one is stopping anybody from doing. We're pretty free, actually, for the most part, within the bounds of the law. Do what you want to do. You don't need permission to enjoy your life, like, within the confines of the law.
I do want to touch on something that you said earlier. You were saying, well, I don't know, but it made me think about how there are racist people in this country. There are people who are extremely racist and prejudiced, and it's a shame. And I don't think they're ever going to change. They are the way they are, and it's disgusting. I've witnessed them in action, and it's not fun to be around. And we have to stand up to stuff like that. But here's the thing: like, if these people believe that by doing these DEI things or by having those Black Lives Matter protests, if that's what you want to call them, put yourself in the shoes of a racist, right? Do you think that, like, watching a Black Lives Matter protest on television and how the news portrays it, because essentially, like, the news that they watch is going to portray it as a riot. Do you think that that's going to help? Like, do you think you're really helping this person become less racist? No, they're going to be screaming at the television. They're going to be seeing, in their opinion, your race doing everything that they think is wrong with your race. And it's insane. It's just further dividing this country. Same thing with the DEI stuff. Like, if someone is really, really opposed to trans people and gays and lesbians, for no reason other than their sexuality or their gender dysphoria,
right?
You think that, like, shoving it down their throat is going to make them less upset at you? And do you think it's gonna force them to, like, value you for who you are and not who you like to have sex with? No, it's not going to do any of that. So I'm glad you're here, because you're able to break this stuff down, and you're a reader and you read these things and research them. I just get upset about them. And I mean, I do a little research, to be fair, but you're much more eloquent when you talk about it, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate the balance you bring, because I would just be sitting here yelling at the camera.
Yeah. I was, and they want to normalize deviant sexuality. Jeff is so correct. And if you look at the pride parades that happened in California over the last 3 years, they were performing sex acts in public in front of minor children. There's actually a photograph of a man stroking his penis out on a crowded public street, with a little girl standing kind of away from, like, he's in the background looking at this little girl rubbing his penis flat out in public. And was this I believe it was San Francisco. There was a congressman who was participating in it wearing fetish gear, and they totally defend this behavior. I mean, like, dildos everywhere. And I hope, like, I'm so sorry if people are watching this with their kids, like, this is probably not, like, kid safe stuff.
I probably just got flagged on my YouTube channel now.
Probably. but using like apparatuses, people performing things on each other in public. It was so gross. Like, and I don't mean to kink shame people, but when you start to make other people participate in your kink, you're being abusive. You do your thing with consenting adults. Do not involve people who don't consent. Period. It's very, if you're not a predator, this stuff is really easy.
Well, we're talking about predators and sexual deviances. This is a story that we've been investigating. This started back in 2007. This was a Eugene teacher arrested. He was accused of sexual abuse in court, it ended up being 2 victims, but as I have investigated, it is many, many, many more than that. And it continued after these allegations from 2006. Here's some more of the story. He was accused of he was convicted of 4 felony and 11 misdemeanor counts in 2007. He was accused of touching girls intimately over and under their clothing, having one girl touch his genitals, and performing oral sex on one girl. He was a teacher, by the way. He was, I believe, a theater teacher at this high school. Most of the encounters occurred at the teacher's office or the school auditorium. I just want to pause here for a second. Like, when you go to school and college to become a teacher, like, at no point in time should you be like, I'm going to become a teacher so that someday I can groom these young girls and hope that someday I can get them in a situation where my face is in their crotch and I am pleasuring them sexually. I mean, that is insane. And as parents, we should not have to worry that we're sending our children to school and their teacher
Absolutely.
would be doing something like this to them.
And
that's absolutely insane.
And then it was pointed out to me that this was old news. He's been at the college. He's been at at SWAC for 14 years. And this is old news. There's been 4 or 5 uproars about it. He and the whole thing was, well, we were told he doesn't have access to minors. He does, and he's working with minors. And a parent of one of the minors that he is working with has reached out to me. Why anyone would listen? Here's the thing: you do not give a convicted predator power over another person ever again. That's it. No. We need to not do that. Stop giving predators power. I understand that the man needs to earn a living. Like you mentioned on your podcast earlier, he could have gone to be a cabinet maker. Yep. He could get a job in the trades where he doesn't have access to potential victims. He needs to make a living. He should never be around minor students again. And they hired him knowing what he did, and even after the community spoke up about it, they kept him on because, dang it, he's a good employee.
But no, I mean, his right to earn a living does not supersede our young children's right to go to school and be safe with our teachers around. I mean, like, this was buried deep in like 150 pages, and sorry for I tried to block out any sort of victim information, but there's a statement in the pre-sentencing report where one of the victims states that the defendant would abuse her while he was teaching, shutting off the lights in the auditorium and having students play hide and seek to set up the opportunity for him to engage in sexual activity with her. I mean, that is astonishing. This person should never, ever, ever be in authoritative position over children again, ever.
I would argue with adults, period.
I would argue that as well.
Or power over anyone. You have to understand that, I was in college for a long time. Professors have enormous power over you. They can ruin your life. I graduated from my undergraduate institution with a 3.975. The power that a professor could have had, I did not get one single B. A B would have stripped me of my summa cum laude credentials that I was able to to graduate with. That is such an, you know, and I went on to attend Columbia University. So that Summa, those grades, my performance affected the entire trajectory of my life and my career. One single professor could have destroyed that for me. We need as a society to stop giving predators power over people of any coercive, institutional, period.
And we need to hold those people accountable. So there's a college board, it's an elected board. And like Nancy says, the people who hired and are normalizing his behavior need to go.
Absolutely.
We do have good teachers in Oregon that are not going to put their face, sorry to be graphic, but we have to be, they're not, there are good teachers out there that would never put their face in your daughter's crotch and pleasure her sexually. Never. They would never do that. It would never even occur to them to do that.
And it's not normal. I attended I attended SWAC when I was 16 years old. I took a college course while I was still in high school. So I've attended there. I attended Arizona Western Community College. I attended Queens College and Columbia University. Never once in all of those institutions, in 6 years of higher education, did I ever have a professor, or in high school for that matter. Never have I been propositioned by a teacher. Never have I had someone be inappropriate with me. This is not normal. And we have to just say, no, these people cannot ever have coercive or other power over another person again. Get them out.
There's enablers out there, because we posted this a couple weeks ago and started talking about this. And, you know, like, this upset me that he's working at the college and he's the director of adult and pre-college education and tutoring. So I go, what? I start looking into that. He actually tutors 9th and 10th graders from our local high schools who are doing poorly in school. They go to him as if he's some magical person that's going to help him. No, he's going to stick his face in your daughter's crotch because that's what he likes to do. You can't ever work in schools again. It's insane. So these people are enabling it. And then they go and they tell us that, no, that's not the case. He's not allowed around children.
That's minimizing. Well, that's blatantly false.
And then we get messages like this. My daughter just called me and said he works with her quite a bit and other minors. She said he's creepily nice. He's teaching the GED program. It's disgusting and sad. I mean, like, what do we not believe these people? Do you think these people are lying? This was the thing.
This person who reached out, I have known that specific person, the mother, since I was a child. I know her. That is my personal friend. And I know for a fact that she's a trustworthy source. So this is not just some rando reaching out. This is a person that I know very well.
I have at least 10 messages just like this, and it's heartbreaking. You know, this one, somebody sent the article to someone who used to know him, and it says, I hope more people put pressure on the college to fire Curtis. I made Kyle Croy aware of the sexual harassment. I believe he was like someone to do with like student services. I made Kyle Croy aware of the sexual harassment Curtis did to me, and he brought it to the higher ups, but they didn't seem to care. All I got was a fake apology and continued harassment. So this is ongoing. This is crazy. I mean, this is like mind-blowing. Every day I get more and more information. I do public records requests, and I go further down the rabbit hole because, you know, he was convicted in 2007, and he was in jail for about a year and a half. And when he got out, he was on 5 years probation. Well, within that 5 years, I believe, I'm still confirming this, but I've been told that he started working at Southwestern Oregon Community College. And it was in his probation, in the judgment from his sentencing, that he wasn't supposed to be around minors for good reason. And then here he is working at our college, and it's continued. We have reports from people that his abuse continued, that it did not stop. And then I have documents like this. So I went to the Eugene Police Department, and I got Isn't that a great document? I paid for the original police reports, the original police investigation on this person back in 2007 that launched the case against him. And I get this police report, and it has some information in it. It has some anecdotal information, some witness statements, but then most of it's blacked out.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't believe this. Anything that you would actually be interested in learning about this case is blacked out. Like,
oh, wow.
it's like a victim statement where it's like, setting everything up, and then like literally right here, those 3 giant blocks that are blacked out are like the event.
What he did.
It's like the touching or the licking or like whatever he did. And it's absolutely insane. I believe they redacted it for privacy to maybe respect the victim having to relive what happened. The audio from the trial is gone. They deleted it after 10 years, so we don't have that anymore. So we're kind of running into a roadblock here. I'm going to keep persisting and see if I can get these redactions removed. If I appeal them individually, I think I can get some removed. But all I can really do is give you guys a summary at this point from reading through this. And then some of it you can't read. It's just page after page. These were the texts. So essentially he got busted because the boyfriend of one of these girls ended up contacting him. He ended up having a fit, and he was going to kill himself. He was telling everybody he was going to kill himself. So the principal ran over to his house. Because he wasn't responding, he wouldn't answer the door, and they thought he was dead. Oh my gosh, what a horror that that he would commit suicide after doing this to young minors. But anyways, they just found him in the house, and he denied everything. Oh, why are you guys here? What's going on? Why are you guys here? And they're like, you know why we're here, right? So then they launched this investigation. He says, I was just hugging. And actually, I didn't even hug them. She came in for a hug, and I pushed her away. Like, all this stuff's in there, not the juicy stuff, but the stuff about like hugging and how he didn't hug her. And there were other victims. There were other allegations that they did not take to trial. It's crazy. After they investigated these 2 young girls that he was teaching, they went and they had many people come forward from college. From when he was in college, he was what was called a resident assistant. So he's like an upperclassman living in the dorms with freshmen, and they're a couple years younger than him, but he's in a position of power, of authority, and he was abusing them, or allegedly abusing them. And the college wants to paint this as like it was a one-time event and it was consensual, and it wasn't. That's not what these allegations are.
Chris,
it's
that's
absolutely wild.
This is a really good point or spot to just interject that this is denying, minimizing, and rationalizing. This is a covert abuse tactic. And so if you are a person who finds yourself leaning into this kind of stuff, please reevaluate your response. Says you're making a big deal out of nothing. Implies you're too demanding, implies you took it the wrong way or misunderstood, makes it seem like you're overreacting, says you're exaggerating, you're too sensitive, I was only kidding, those sorts of things. Denying, minimizing, rationalizing. Let's not do that. When we're dealing with a predator who has access to victims and power over them, let's not deny, minimize, and rationalize the situation.
It's crazy. I can't believe he's teaching at our school. Tracy says, predators look for places they can be around potential victims.
Bingo.
That's exactly why our schools need to be so vigilant in screening and taking quick action when an accusation is made. They don't, though, because the potential for a lawsuit is more important to them. They prefer to hide it and ignore it and hope it never comes to light. Well, Tracy, we are bringing it to light. We are still investigating this one. We're not going to stop. We're going to get all the information we can on it, just so that when they come at us and say that we don't know the story or we don't know what we're talking about, we can prove to them that we absolutely do. And I unfortunately know way more about Curtis Buell than I ever wanted to know. My opinion is that he is an absolutely foul, disgusting creature. he had his, like, I think it was his stepdad or his uncle write a letter to the judge saying that he was going to go work at his cabinet shop, and please don't, put him in jail. He's going to come work at my cabinet shop. And it was this really heartfelt letter. And it's like, why didn't you just do that, Curtis?
Yeah.
Curtis,
yeah.
why didn't you just go work
Yes.
at the cabinet shop?
Because that is a excellent point, Chris, because I do want to emphasize that we are not advocating that people just go out there and hunt down sexual predators and, exact vigilante justice. We are specifically focusing on this case because it is a predator with power over the exact demographic he victimized. So, it's one thing, listen, these things happen. We don't live in a state that executes child predators. Florida does. And so, hey, maybe there's some room for some, different solutions there. But in the meantime, we have to deal with these people. They need to make a living. We don't want them on state assistance. Obviously, they need to support themselves. We are concerned with predators who have power. You do not do that. These people can go live a quiet life, go mind their own business, don't bother anybody, and no one should go bother them. But when you take an extreme predator like this and you put them back in the exact environment where they committed the crime in the first place, people need to speak up about that.
We do. And we need to do something about it. And I know you're tiptoeing. You're saying, no, please don't go out and kill him. We are not saying that at all. We do not want vigilante justice. I want to be very clear about that. But I'm gonna do everything in my power to educate the people who can make a decision about this to make the right decision. I'm gonna make sure that they have all the information I have, and that I have done my due diligence to make sure that I have presented them with that information. And I'm likely to run for the college board. So this May, I believe there are 4 seats out of the 7 that are up for re-election. I think it would be absolutely fantastic if we could get 4 people in there that know about this and that are absolutely disgusted by it. And then, like, it doesn't end. Like, here, this is another thing I found. So every criminal is entitled, everyone who's convicted is entitled within 2 years to file what's called post-conviction relief, to have their, record expunged or something. They can also appeal. That's a whole separate process. So this is his post-conviction relief that he filed. It was denied. It was denied because he was validly found guilty by a jury of his peers. A lot of those blank pages in the other document were text messages between him and the victims. I mean, it was very clear that he committed these crimes. He was talking about it with them. But anyways, this is a denial from back in 2008. Well, just this past December, on December 5th, he filed another petition for post-conviction relief. And that's really weird because it's a 2-year timetable that you have to complete this in. But as you read this document, you find out that his lawyer and him, I would imagine, are alleging that because of some errors, he's entitled to file this all these years later and get his record expunged. And this is so rich. You've got to see this one. One of the points that they make in this document is it says, Mr. Buell did not file a direct appeal. He has not previously sought post-conviction relief. It's a flat out lie. I mean, like, this person, through his attorney, is just lying and manipulating the system. It's absolutely
that can be reported to the Bar Association.
I mean, it's like, did his lawyer not do his due diligence? Is he lying to his lawyer? I mean, I really would like to have these questions answered, but ultimately I would just not like to have to deal with this issue anymore, because I would hope that our college board does the right thing and finds a better teacher. Because
I will say, Chris, when it comes to people standing up against this stuff, it needs to be said that this is scary work. When you're challenging a predator's livelihood, you're dealing with predators. Predators do predatory things. When you start to disrupt their access to, eye candy at best, new victims at worst, you put yourself in a line of fire, like literally. I mean that, people look at what happened to Epstein. I'm sorry, he didn't kill himself. Surprise. Dude was murdered because he had all of this information on child predators. This stuff happens to people. So when you start challenging predators, and it is something that me, myself, I am scared of. I don't want to be targeted for violence by someone who's angry at me because I said the thing that they're trying to keep quiet. And so I do empathize with the people out there who are afraid to challenge this because they're afraid of predators. That we can only fix with numbers, power in numbers. They can't come after all of us. And so we need community support from like-minded people who recognize that this is a problem, that recognize it's not right, who can also take up the mantle and be a voice. Because the threat, and I'm not trying to imply that I think he specifically or his, I'm not like trying to say that he would do that, but I'm saying it has happened and it can happen. And the more we dig into all of this kind of stuff, the more you and I and the others like us can become targets. And I think that fear of retaliation, which is a kind of that's on here, covert control, covert intimidation through fear mongering, that stuff, if it does come up, you really better like stop talking about this kind of stuff. And granted, that hasn't happened yet, but it happens to people, and it's a fear that I personally have. And so I recognize that there's probably a lot of other people who are legitimately afraid to speak out against it.
I mean, it's a thing. There's already people coming after me. Last week, there was a guy who posted all over Facebook that I'm some sort of a racist because I was discussing DEI and how, like, I was actually discussing that racism is bad, that
I think
discrimination
actual
is bad.
equality seems to upset a lot of people. And
Yeah.
we didn't get into all of the components of DEI, but it is worth mentioning that equality and equity do not mean the same thing. And when they say that DEI should be implemented with a scalpel, not a hammer, it should be exercised cautiously, because equity can create bait for predators. All you have to do is prove that you need more than someone else, so you get more. It's literally bait. And so you and I were raised with equality, right? And I think we both really espouse that. And I am a huge proponent of equal opportunity. Everyone should have access to the same resources, the same opportunities, the same public resources, the same, like, no one should be actively discriminated against. Equity is not that. Equity is the doling out of resources based on need. Now, in some circumstances, like food stamps, that makes sense, right? If you don't need food stamps, you shouldn't take them. But for things like job opportunities, or for, merit-based qualifications, you do not lower standards so that everyone can meet the same goal when you need performance. And so I just kind of wanted to throw that out there, because equity can be very racist, especially when you're discriminating against people who have the reputation of like having access to more. And then when you look into it, it's
No,
not.
you're right. And like, there are times when I'm nervous and I'm worried, that like, hey, going down this path is gonna send people after me, and who knows? Maybe I'll be Epstein. But if you guys read in the news that I committed suicide, you can probably believe it. But if you read in the news that there's a bunch of FBI agents dead in my yard, it's because they came here to try and kill me and commit suicide myself, and I won because I'm prepared. We did that at the beginning of the show. tactical defense. So
I do know someone who works against human trafficking, saving girls and women from human trafficking, and he was cyanide poisoned.
oh wow, it
Yep.
happens. It really, really does.
They found cyanide on his door handle of his car door handle. It was
I'm
actually.
not too worried about this sex offender theater teacher from our community college because he's a wuss. He's a little bit of a wimp if he's going after young women, if that's his prey. Because yeah, I can be a predator too. Not in that same fashion, but you know what I mean. If right now I've got him in my sights, I'm working on everything I can to get documentation on every piece of what he did and find out. I'm going to reach out to the original officer that did that investigation, see if he's willing to come forward and talk. Maybe he would come on the show.
That would be great.
I'm considering reaching out to the victims. We have to be sensitive about that, but we don't want to re-victimize them. But if they're shocked that he's teaching, which I would imagine they are.
It's weird. It's hard to imagine that someone would be like, yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, people, certain situations are weird, you know. So, like, I could believe that, you know, maybe some of his contacts were consensual, but what I've read and what I've learned, it was not at all okay.
So sometimes what will happen, and this is something that I think is a sex-based perspective. As a woman, there are things that I understand about coercion that a man kind of wouldn't get. Sometimes women will go along with what a man wants them to do because they are scared of being hurt. We're physically, you know, a man can kill it. The average man can kill an average woman with his bare hands. Strangulation is common. And so I think that a lot of these situations may look like, well, she didn't resist. She didn't fight back. No, she went along with it because she was afraid of being strangled. And that can explain a lot of these coercive encounters.
I mean, even if it was as simple as, hey, I was just afraid that I would lose my lead role in the play. I mean, that's ridiculous. And so I didn't mean it to minimize what happened at all. I just mean that I know that if let's say it comes out and the details are that this was some very flirtatious 17-year-old and he was a very young teacher, and you know what I mean, like it starts to crumble in their mind that it was somehow okay, even though it's not at all okay, but it's not as strong and convincing of a situation. And what we're finding out through reading this, that it's not at all like that.
No.
And it's very disgusting and very wrong what he did. And there are many more people that didn't even get to speak in court and speak their allegations to what he did to them for one reason or another. There was one victim that was like overseas in the military, and they could only write one very short email. My brother was in the military. He didn't have much time to write. So she would spend her time writing a very short email in part 1, part 2, part 3, 1 month at a time, talking to these investigators and getting that story out there. And she never got her day in court. It just didn't work out for one reason or another. Maybe there wasn't enough evidence, but it's crazy the amount of information out there, even in heavily redacted documents that I'm gathering. So yeah, you know, if they want to come after me for that, if people on the college board want to come after me for that, that's fine. The best defense is a good offense, and we're coming after you guys. So you better watch out.
You know, it's all of this kind of circles back into the inclusion thing, where schools wanted to include sexual preference as an identity that was accepted in schools. And I don't think, and again, me and you are from the generation where we don't care if someone's gay. We don't care how someone wants to dress. It's not an issue. It is bizarre that people in the education system would think that having sexuality flags, listen, gay pride is fine. If you're a consenting adult, you know, you do whatever you'd like to do. But when you introduce small children to sexual preference, you're grooming them and you're creating a permissive atmosphere that attracts predators. It's back to you pulled up a really good comment that was something to that point of creating a school environment that is inviting predators into it. Yes, they look for places where they can be around potential victims. And what better place than a bunch of kids who have had their boundaries around adult sexuality violated and broken down? So now an adult can, yes, like, show me that they're not trying to normalize deviant sexual behavior. And granted, when I say deviant, like, again, I'm not kink shaming. Like, people do whatever you want to do with consenting adults. Like, but they want to normalize, and by deviant, I think he's probably meaning adult child sexual relationships.
Yeah, no, I know, Jack.
Yeah,
He's talking
when
about
you break down
sex
children's
offenders,
boundaries,
sexual predators.
they created a freaking smorgasbord for predators within schools. You have all these kids, you've broken down their boundaries, and now you have like this little pool of like easy to manipulate. And if they don't, to me, the whole thing is sexual harassment. I should not have to entertain someone else's sexual preference beyond what me and another individual choose to have a personal conversation about. Like, anything beyond that is sexual harassment. I don't need to know who my coworkers want to sleep with. Like, beyond conversations of like, hey, Julie, how's your wife doing? Because I know Julie's married to a woman. But like, I even think it's weird when bisexual people who are in a monogamous committed relationship talk about the fact that they're bisexual. Like, I'm married. I don't talk about all the like men I'm attracted to. It's disrespectful.
And now it's getting really confusing because you might be married to a man who might not be a man.
Right.
Or maybe he used to be a man, or next
Right.
year he'll be a man, or
It's just such an inappropriate thing to like push on people. It's not our business, first of all. Like, it's
I wish I had the clip. One of my earlier shows, I was talking with an elected official about books in the library, and I brought up Curious George, and I held it up, and it was like, what happened to like just knowing that Curious George was a monkey? And like, I didn't care if Curious George was gay or not.
Yeah.
Or if he was a male or a female. He was just George the monkey. Like, it didn't matter.
And what was wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with that.
That's the way we grew up, and I'm really, and I don't think you are either, the furthest thing from a legitimate bigot. And like you said, racism is real. I would say bigotry and prejudice is real. Racism, and there's going to be people that will argue with this, but I have 3 degrees in sociology and psychology, and what we were taught is that racism is a function of power. You cannot exercise racism without power. You can exercise prejudice, you can exercise bigotry, but you have to have power to make racism happen. Otherwise, you're just being an asshole. Oh, excuse my language. You're just being a jerk, right? And so racists in this country, they don't really have power anymore. We have federal laws against it. Now, do people still do it? Yeah, occasionally, and they can be sued for it. And usually, thankfully, those lawsuits are usually successful. But it's, we were raised, we didn't have to be taught to be inclusive. We just naturally were. Kids are naturally inclusive. When we were kids, we didn't care what color someone was, what food they ate, how they dressed. We all got made fun of. We all got picked on. Like, everybody was a target for something. But I feel like there was no need for this other than grooming. There is no need to talk to 6-year-olds about sexuality at all.
They should be talking about math and reading and writing at school, and that's all they should be doing. None of that extra stuff. I mean, you know what was extra when I was in elementary school? It was, I took French. I took French like after school. Like, that was the extra thing that we did. I didn't take
Yeah.
like a gender identity course after school.
Yeah, there should be no sexuality clubs in schools. Period.
It's crazy. And stuff is starting to happen around here. Like you said, we're like a little bit behind the times.
Yeah.
So
And
it
I
just
think
came
we
up
all
abandoned.
really need to be like, this has been wrong from the beginning, and it's wrong now. We should not have children organizing themselves around their sexual preference in school. It's inappropriate.
It's
Wasn't
crazy.
needed 20 years ago. And if you look at mental health, if you look at social welfare markers, mental health is worse. Employment is worse. Like performance is worse. Social skills are worse. There's kids coming out of high school who can't walk into a restaurant and order an appetizer without breaking out in a sweat because their anxiety. So like, what are we doing? If we're not producing better adjusted, more capable, healthier, more content people, the proof is in the pudding. And I don't see results that are worth defending these ideologies.
It's not working, and that's why we talked about earlier. Big companies are doing away with it. I'm actually going to touch on some other news headlines that I saw, because we'll talk about this forever, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it in another show, because unfortunately it's not going away as quick as we'd like it to. And my mouse just stopped working. This was goofy. So I see this headline on Bloomberg, and it says China weighs sale of TikTok, the US side of it, to Elon Musk as a possible option. And then right next to it, right after I scroll past that, is another article that says TikTok calls report that China is exploring sale of app to Elon pure fiction. It's like, what do we believe? Like, how do you know what to believe anymore?
There is no journalistic integrity.
How do you know which one of these is true and which one is false? Because they're completely opposing.
Right.
So maybe both. Maybe it's a little bit of both. And like a big sale like that, right? Like you could understand it has to be like kept under wraps and all that. But another interesting one, I thought this was a joke, but it's not.
I did too.
They're talking about maybe taking over Greenland and the area around the Panama Canal, which we used to own the area around the Panama Canal. So that's not that crazy. I believe it was like 1997 or 1999 that we just finally gave control over to the Panama government. And even then, it's still like an autonomous zone. It's not really like part of that country. And then Greenland, I didn't know this, so I researched it a little bit, but it's like, I believe it's operated by Denmark. And they're trying to have their own independence and become their own country, and maybe we're going to somehow help them with that and make them like a territory. Strategically, it's a great spot, both of those.
Yeah, it sounded like they wanted to use it as a weapons base. I don't know,
which we probably already are,
to speak intelligently on it, but it seems to me if they were wanting to use it as a strategic military installation, they should probably not put it in the news. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
This is giving slow week vibes.
Maybe.
Or
maybe it's like they want to get this idea out there so it can all be flushed out before they actually send like military over there to like actually set up something. But this guy, JD Vance, I've read his book. They made a movie out of it. I'm very excited about this man getting involved in politics. I didn't know much about him until Trump picked him as his vice president.
Me either.
He's inspiring. If you read his book or get an audiobook, it's like 6 hours. It's really short. It's like 3 of our shows worth, and read the book or listen to the audiobook over the movie, because the movie is more of a story. It's called Hillbilly Elegy. The movie's more of a story. His book is more of like an analysis of his people, of his culture, in the Appalachian Mountains.
Cool.
On the East
He's very
Coast.
well spoken.
He is. It's scary.
It's refreshing.
It is. I didn't mean scary in a bad way. I meant scary in like, whoa, like that guy's good. I don't know how if people are too much into politics, but Trump's prior press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany. Have you ever heard her talk? I mean, she is absolutely incredibly well spoken. She used to sit there at the podium during the White House press briefings, and she'd have this like giant binder, and someone like one of the members from the press would be asking her a question. She, in the middle of them asking, she'd be flipping open her binder, and as soon as they were done, she could talk eloquently about it and recite all these facts about it, and it could be anything from all over the map. I mean, her and her team were so well prepared. I think she went to Harvard. She had to have. I mean, she's anyway. So I hope Kayleigh McEnany does something. I think she's on like a Fox TV show right now. She was a CNN anchor.
Is it a binder like this?
Yes. And she would just start flipping through it. And it was so cool. So inspiring to see people like that, like rise up. And that's one thing I like about Trump. He does make poor choices sometimes in terms of people who he chooses to be involved with his administration, but he also makes some really good choices. And we end up finding people who we never would have known about. So I'm looking forward to that over the next 4 years.
Cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I've never met JD Vance, but maybe someday. So I don't really know him personally, but what I've seen, he's a good guy. And yeah, we'll have him on the show. Yeah, we can laugh at that. Some other things I wanted to mention. I'm going to start doing this thing every Saturday at Cafe 101 in Coos Bay, from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. The prior show I said 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and I went down there at 7 a.m. and I realized that they're not open. They're not open till 8 a.m.
Oh, okay.
So from 8 a.m. till 10 a.m. every Saturday morning, I will be at Cafe 101 to answer questions that anybody might have, or work together, collaborate on a project. I can't do everything, but I'll probably be able to point you in the right direction or get somebody to help you. I'm calling it Coffee with a Conservative.
That's cool.
And I'm going to try and invite other conservative leaders in the area. And if conservative freaks you out, because I have libertarian ideals and I have a lot of liberal friends who like Democrat friends who support what I do, because there is some crossover. Don't let it scare you that I'm a conservative, because here, I'm going to do a little exercise. Ready? I am Chris Castleman. I am Chris Castleman. I'm Chris Castleman. Chris Castleman. See, like, I am the same person no matter what red hat you put on. It doesn't matter. This one says Trump on the back, but it doesn't make me any less of a person.
Right.
And it doesn't make me any different of a person than I was before I had the red hat on. So if you go down on Saturday, you're going to see me sitting there with a red hat. And it's just so that people, they go, hey, that's the guy that's doing the conservative Coffee with a Conservative.
I would really implore anyone who has an idea about conservatives being these big, bad, bigoted, awful people. They may have had bad experiences, because people can be crappy, especially when you get into communicating with people that start using covert abuse tactics. And I have found, it happens. So if you're someone who is like, which they're probably not watching this video, but just in case, if you know someone who, maybe lives in a bubble, Chris is an excellent person to talk to, because he's not going to berate you. He's not going to belittle you. He's not going to be nasty. He's just going to have an honest, upfront, respectful conversation with you. And so you're a great spokesperson for that kind of thing.
Well, I will clarify that I have lost my cool with a couple elected officials over the past 2 years, and I wouldn't take a moment of it back. These people are supposed to have our trust and our respect, but they don't. They've lost it because they're not doing their job, and I am not going to sit idly by and be nice to them while they ruin our little community here. So that, with that one caveat, but actually, if Mayor Joe Benetti, me and you have gotten into it before, but if you show up on Saturday, we can have a cup of coffee and be cool about it. We've had many occasions where we talk, and we do just fine. But I'm going to put up a graphic here that I found over the weekend to be very cool. It says, Wherever you know of harm, regard that harm as your own and give your foes no peace. And I felt this, it like spoke to me because this is kind of what I do, you know, when people bring something to me, an issue that they have, uh, even if I'm not experiencing it, I take that harm as my own. I really do. And I feel it. And that's sometimes why I do get really upset and I get really demanding with when I'm talking to public leaders because they don't do that. And it's very like minimizing and it's like they're totally disregarding these people who are like hurting in our community and they're
Chris,
yearning for something better and we need heroes. We need warriors to stand up and fight for them. So what's up,
you
Brandi?
do, yes, you do that, but there's an important caveat to that. You do your due diligence. You know, you're not like out there crusading under false pretense. You find out the truth, you get to the root of the story. There are a lot of people that do things thinking that they're being righteous when they're actually it's a path to hell paved with good intentions situation. I can pretty confidently say that you tend to be thorough in your kind of recon before you go in, and that's you use temperance and good sound judgment before you're not just out there flying wild on a rumor.
I'm certainly not. I appreciate your words. You're making my skin crawl. I don't like talking about me. This whole thing is about other people, not me. It's about getting our community together and fighting these battles that need to be fought. So I appreciate your kind words. They are all applicable to you as well and to some of the other people we've put together. We've actually, like speaking of warriors here, we're putting together a little team. We're calling it the Coos Avengers. And if you want to be a part of it, let us know. We're looking for incredibly engaged people to not only get involved in these issues, but to become warriors for Coos County and really fight for the real issues that are plaguing our communities. So
showing up at meetings, being a voice.
There's many different
word.
ways to get involved. I mean, it's not going to be always going to these meetings. I'm actually going to stop going to these meetings here real soon. I've already dialed it back a lot. I'm doing a lot of them more virtually just so I can kind of get the like information out of them, but it's not working going to these meetings and explaining to them.
It's not
so.
And you know, it's like you and I have spoke about recently. It doesn't help for us to go sit down and talk one-on-one with a commissioner and have them go, oh yeah. And then nothing happens. And that conversation dies with us. It goes nowhere. When we spend all this time at the meetings and we kind of have gotten a lot of lip service and it just doesn't go anywhere. And so I agree with you that I think it's not the best way to spend our time. Probably influencing probably isn't the right word. Just getting information out there, and people can influence their own mind and make up their own mind and come to their own judgments, but giving people access to a voice that they might not have otherwise heard.
We need to give people the tools to be successful. We need to encourage and help each other. So that's what I hope to be doing. I got elected 2 months ago as the vice chair of the Republican Party. And again, don't get scared because I said Republican. What I'm going to be doing is putting together events like movie nights and happy hours and coffees on Saturday mornings to help people come together and have discussions just like these ones we've been having and help. I'm even going to go to some Democratic Party events because I think there's things that we can work on together. And I'm going to have to like bite my tongue in some occasions and just keep quiet about certain things that they're talking about. Like if they're talking about equity, I'm going to have to go, okay, I'm not going to talk about equity. But if they're talking about something that we can get involved with and help out, we should do that.
Yep.
Melissa here says, Democrat or Republican, we need to all stand together for our rights and for the rights of our children as Americans.
Absolutely.
I'm going to do a low key brag for myself here. She says she's a Democrat, and Chris is a friend of mine. Thank you, Melissa. That means something to me for sure. But yeah, people are surprised. Like, you have liberal friends. Like, how? And it's like, well, because I care. I think
because
really
at
is what it comes down to.
heart, you have the same basic values, and most left-leaning or liberal people are pretty suspicious at this point of how far the pendulum has swung. Most people are pretty open to a reasonable person, regardless of what their leanings are. And we did not get into the weaponization of the not-for-profit, but I think we should do it on the next show.
Oh, for sure. No, and for people watching, we're going to keep doing this. I think we're committed at this point. We're going to start doing it once a week. It's going to be like a weekly show. I think over time we'll probably get the timing right and our flow of it right. But we're just two amateurs trying to figure our way out here and get information out there to people and organize. And I know there are people out there who appreciate it, and we appreciate you guys. Roger Cram, he says, good evening, Chris and Brandi. If you're still watching, Roger, I appreciate you.
Hi, Roger.
But yeah, this is like really neat that we've had the opportunity to do this.
Yeah.
I think
I've worked in nonpartisan politics for quite a while. That was how I started my career in organizational consultation. I started off as a systems analyst, and I've always worked across the board with Democrat, Republican, Independent. I was on an executive committee for the Independence Party of New York. This way back in 2011, 2012, 2013. And I've always really enjoyed working across the aisle with all different kinds of people. You realize that people actually overlap a lot more than you would expect, and that the extremism is actually rare. It's just been amplified so much in the media because of manipulation, that we think it's a bigger thing than it is, but most people are actually really reasonable.
I think so. I mean, the people I've met around here, it's one thing that gravitated me to this area is that we had common values and common beliefs. And I rarely run into somebody. I mean, like when I was campaigning for commissioner, I like really pushed myself out of a comfort zone, and I walked into like a very, very far left leaning thrift store in Coos Bay. And I was nervous. I thought she was going to kick me out. This is a thrift store that allows homeless people to sleep right outside her door. And, I'm handing out a flyer, and like, it's a lot about homelessness, but it's like specific. It calls them bums, because I'm not against homelessness. I'm against people bumming off society and
they're
acting.
Out there. Yeah.
And that's what I'm against. And we can address homelessness, but that's a separate issue from crime and drug abuse and being a bum. Anyway, so I walk in and we start talking, and we had stuff that we could talk about. I don't think she appreciated me saying bum, but I mean, she had just been burglarized by those very people that she had allowed to sleep out in front of her place, and she was no longer allowing it. Because I started the conversation, I was like, "Why is your window boarded up?" Well, because they broke it and broke into her place and stole stuff. So we're all becoming victims of crime and of these bad policies which enable crime to continue. So we've got a lot of common ground, and I think we can do this, Coos County. I really do. It's taking a lot longer than I would hope, but
we have so much access to resources as far as getting a message out, self-publishing, doing these videos ourselves, that we have a voice that no one has to give us a platform. We don't have to ask for permission to put a message out there. And I will be able to join you more. I know you and I have spoke about this privately, but I have some personal commitments. I'm getting some certifications in life and health coaching, and it takes up a lot of my time outside of work for now. I'm going to be completing that here in another 4 or 5 months or so, 4 months, I think. And I will be able to start doing a little bit more in the community with you. So I'm really looking forward to that. I will be more active in the business community. And so it will be really cool to get the business owners behind our message and maybe get them to throw a little bit of money at the cause, because that won't
Oh,
help.
I think they're ready. I think a lot of people in this county are ready, and they just need to be shown the way. So
I'm telling you, I think a lot of those anonymous messages on a lot of these websites are actually leaders and business owners that they don't want to speak out because they don't want to alienate their clients. They don't want to alienate their colleagues.
oh yeah. No, I know it happens because I'm contacted by people who have fake names and they have to like explain, no, I'm really this person in the community that everybody knows. But on Facebook, I have this fake name. Like I know at least 5 people that are doing that. And
Yeah.
they're leaders in our community, but they're participating in the discussions and their role in those discussions would surprise people.
Yeah.
But
And
hopefully
that should be, if we want to talk about inclusion, let's talk about including people who have controversial opinions regardless of their skin color.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we need to focus on merit and focus on you know, things that actually matter. And I don't think that those other discussions that they're having, these priorities that they keep talking about, are not things that matter.
No, not to the average person who's just trying to like keep their property from being vandalized.
I made this cool little graphic. Not everybody saw it. If you were on the Rumble channel, you got to see this. I thought it was
So
pretty
this is
cool.
what you'll see before our live stream pops off. This is what you'll see to know that you're in the right place and it'll be starting soon.
Yep. Yeah, we try and start it right at 6, but like today, I don't know if you noticed, we were a couple minutes late. We're
learning.
Trying to figure some stuff out, but all this technology stuff is so cool that all this can be done. Like I made this in like 20 minutes today. Cheryl says that's cool. It really is. I was like, I just did that. Like that's pretty cool. But yeah, it's cool. I appreciate you being here. Yeah, don't worry about all the other stuff you have going on. I mean, this is like crazy enough as it is. We've been here for 2 hours and there's still people online. Like
that's cool.
I really appreciate everybody who's watching. Yeah.
So. And if there is stuff that people want to hear us talk about, you leave it in the comments or, reach out to us and we're, we want to talk about things that matter to people. And so let us know what you want to hear about, what you want us to dive into and explore.
For sure. Are we ready to wrap it up?
I think we're ready to wrap it up. Yeah, I'm going to eat some food and have a glass of wine.
I'm going to play some music. All right. See you, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
It's been really cool. Thanks for being here.